Hey everyone, this is Holly Chantal, the founder of the Land of Brand, and welcome to the Land of Brand Laboratory, or as we like to call it, the LOBoratory for short. And if you're joining us for the first time, we meet every Wednesday, 12 o'clock Eastern, and we talk about different topics in branding. Specifically, how can you build a brand as a coach that stands out, establishes you as a category authority, and allows you to express your unique personality. And today we have a very special edition of the LOBoratory. This is our 100th episode, webinar, whatever you want to call it. And so I just want to just give a special thank you to everyone that has been with us since the beginning. This is going on our third year of these LOBoratory calls. We have almost 2,500 mad brand scientists, and I just enjoy speaking with you every week and hearing about your businesses, what's working, what's not working, getting your questions by email and everything. So just thanks for playing with me and being in my community. So if you have any questions or comments as we're going through, feel free to type them in on the right-hand side of the dashboard, and I will take a look at them at the end. And just so you know, there is a slight delay between me talking and you guys actually hearing me. So when you type in a question, it takes a little, or when you type in a question, I've already kind of moved on from there. So if you type them in early, I'll be more likely to see them at the end when we're doing the Q&A. So type in your questions and comments as early as you can. Otherwise, sometimes I end the broadcast before they actually come through. All right, so let's go ahead and move on over to the presentation. Just trying to get my little, come on, my little thing to slide out. All right, I'm just going to switch to my second monitor. Anne says, hello, Anne. It's so good to have you here. All right, and you guys should be able to see my second screen. Let's go ahead and make that full. All right. So today is going to be a fun topic. Today's topic is, what's that smell? Sensory branding, why it pays to engage your audience's senses. And specifically what we're going to be talking about is why stinky brands are sticky in the best way, the 6 types of feel you can create with your brand, and some unconventional ways to make your brand stand out at events. So this is going to be a fun topic. It's not something I've ever talked about before, but it's a concept that I've been kind of playing with, and I thought it would be fun to share. So when you think of a brand, most people are thinking of the visual aspects. So the graphics, the website, the logo, what colors are used, what fonts are used. And what you're going for is to create a certain look and feel. But as you know, if you've been hanging around me for a while, your brand is a lot more than just the visual aspects. Your brand is the overall perception of your business. So it is how people perceive you as a person, whether they think you're authentic, inauthentic, they think you're boring, they think you're exciting, they think you're fun, they think you're stern. All of those pieces of your personality are a huge part of your brand. Also, the quality of your products are a huge part of your brand. Your message is a huge part of your brand. All of these pieces go into creating this perception around your business. And the cool thing is you have a lot of control around this perception, and it's all based on the choices you make. So in this webinar, what we're going to talk about are kind of a different way to influence this brand using your senses, and how people can feel and experience your brand in 6 different ways. So the first one is visual, obvi. The second one is messaging and creating an emotional feel. So an emotional connection. It's not one of the senses you typically think of, but when we're talking about connecting with people and bonding with them and creating loyal community, emotional connection is really important. So the messaging that you're using is going to create a feel. Logically, it's going to tell someone, this is for me. And emotionally, I'm going to connect with you and your brand if your messaging is sound and if you're really expressing yourself in your business. So those 2 are fairly obvious. So let's talk about the other ones that may not be so obvious, but can still be fun to incorporate. So your brand has a sound. Your voice affects how people perceive you. So you guys are listening to me right now, and the language that I'm using, so calling you hey guys instead of you people, or saying ladies versus gentlemen, all of those things create a certain perception. The words you use create a perception around you. I use the word awesome a lot. For some people, they're going to think that I sound too young to be working with them. Others are going to be like, yes, she's fun. I get her. I use that word too. Let's do this. So the words you use are going to turn some people off and turn some people on. And that is a big part of your brand sound. So how you are on webinars, the words you use on video, not only the words you're using, but also how you actually sound. So if I have a particular accent, it might create a perception. Or sometimes my voice, is a little bit different depending on how nervous I am, or how good I'm feeling that day. Today I'm feeling pretty darn good because Evan let me sleep until 6. The last couple weeks I've been getting up at 4. So you'll notice that on some of the webinars, I sound very different depending on how much sleep I get. All of these things affect your brand and your perception, and they're things that you want to think about when you are creating this type of content. The other thing is that your prospects also hear you when they're reading your content. So let's say you're reading a blog. If you've heard me speak a few times, you probably hear me talking to you in the blog. If not, if you haven't heard me speak, then you're still going to get this perception or this assumption of what I would sound like if I were talking to you. And that is very much, again, shaped by the language and the words you're using, the content you're talking about, a headshot if you have one on your site where people would be reading. All of these things affect how people hear you in their head. And that's why I think it's so important that coaches have a headshot and they have their personality really expressed on their website so that people are really hearing the authentic them. Music is also a powerful tool for your brand. So for instance, if you are creating videos, you could use an intro and an outro, like sting sound. You can also do that on audios. If you're doing a podcast, sound is huge. On teleseminars, some systems will allow you to upload custom hold music. I just recently signed up for Uber Conference, which is kind of a new conference line. Loving it so far, by the way, if you guys are curious. And one of the things it lets you do is upload custom hold music. So here I am thinking, what could that be? What would I want people to listen to while they're waiting for me to get on the phone? And I have all kinds of fun and some devious ideas. So think about that. What does your brand sound like? I was even playing with the idea of using the song Happy because I feel like that is what my brand sounds like. That is what I love dancing to before I jump on a webinar. But on the other hand, I'm like, it might be annoying to people because some people aren't song's been a little played out. I don't really listen to the radio, so I barely ever hear it. So things like that, like think about it. What does your brand sound like? What song resonates with your personality and is an expression of you? You can also put music in the background of your audios and videos. When you're doing, and this is just kind of a side note, when you're using music for intros, outros, videos, those kinds of things, you want to make sure that you're using, just like with stock photos, that you're using sound clips that are approved for use in those types of situations. If you go and post let's say you create a video that you're selling and you use a mainstream song like Happy and you don't have rights to it, you could potentially get into a lot of trouble. So look into the legal aspects of that, but I just want to kind of throw that out there as I'm telling you to start using music in your brand. I don't want anyone to get into trouble. You can also use certain songs at an event. So you choose songs that are really resonant with your brand and you can play them in the background during breaks. I went to an event a few years ago in New York, and what they did was they had one song that was basically the theme of the event. And the song at the time was Lady Gaga, Edge of Glory. And every time I hear that song now, I think of that event, which tells you how powerful this is. And what they did was they would play that song just a couple minutes before a break would end so that everyone would hear the song and they'd be triggered to go and find their seats. And it helped them keep the event on time, keep the, the flow going. Everyone, would stop talking and sit down at the same time. It was a great way to control a crowd. And it also left a lasting impression. Like I said, now every time I hear that song, I think of that event. And it also created this feeling, I'm on the edge of glory. That song creates such a unique feeling that the event mirrored. So it's just a very interesting way to use sound in association with a brand. Your brand can also have a smell. And some of these things are we're getting really scientific here, so bear with me. I found the scientific information on, I think it's like howitworks.com or one of those sites. So our sense of smell is directly linked to our memory. So when you smell popcorn, you think of a movie theater. When you smell flowers, maybe you think of your grandmother. So your sense of smell triggers memories. It is part of the limbic system, which also controls our memory and our emotions. So it's actually they called it the olfactory bulb is embedded in the limbic system. So when you smell something, your brain links it to what's going on at the time. So your brain might link it to an event that's where you are, a person that you're with, like your grandmother, a thing, or a moment in time. And this gives you the ability to really make your brand stick in someone's mind. Stick out as in, it stands out as a memory, but also stick to their mind as in it's memorable. And when they smell that again, they're going to think of you and your brand. A little bit harder to apply, but we will talk about that. So how can your brand have a smell? Well, believe it or not, there are businesses that will make a signature scent for you. It's pretty crazy. I'm actually considering, making a Land of Brand scent just to see what the process looks like because I think that this is hilarious. So you can use that scent at tables and events. So I'm going to be sponsoring an event in May. I may have some smelly things going on just to see how this works. Or let's say you're putting on an event, you could have that scent at the event. And since scents trigger memories and emotions and personal connections, you might be able to find a scent just like the sound and that music that brought the energy level up, or made people think bigger than would think otherwise. Scents can probably do the same thing. This is not something I've researched very much, but I'm assuming that since they have that emotional connection, that this is something that could be created. You could also use this scent on letterheads or cards that you send out to people so that when they receive something from you, it has that scent. Kind of like if you wear perfume, sometimes your clothes smell like it, or sometimes if you mail something, the person can smell your scent on it. Same thing, except it's the scent of your brand. If don't want to go kind of all weird in that way, you could do something as simple as sending a client or a partner flowers or maybe cookies or something else that triggers that sense of smell. I know one of my colleagues was talking about they put on this huge event every year. It's just this big virtual summit, and what they do is, to help keep their partners engaged, they send flowers to the partner. So when the partner signs up, just maybe a week or two before the event, they send them all flowers. And what they do is that they put the flowers on their desk, and then every time the person gets a little whiff of those flowers, one, they think of the event organizer, and two, they're reminded that maybe they should send an email to promote it. So it goes both ways. It's creating a positive association. It's reminding them to keep up with the event, and it's just a really nice gesture that people really appreciate. Another thing you could do is choose where you're going to put on an event based on how it smells there. So an event by the ocean, or maybe, a freshly mown golf course. Those types of things are important. For instance, you would not want to choose to do an event near a landfill or something that's going to have a negative association. So things that you just probably don't typically consider, but maybe you should. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that even mentioning a particular scent can work here. So as I'm mentioning popcorn or lilies or garbage, you have these associations, you can smell them. It, like, your mind just kind of conjures it up. It's such an interesting thing. So you might even, when you're doing like a visualization exercise with your client, you might talk about certain scents and help trigger these memories and help use that as a tool at your disposal. So how about taste and touch? And since these are both more kind of physical manifestations, like you're either physically putting something in your mouth or touching something, I'm just going to group these two together because they're fairly similar. Both of these could be satisfied by sending someone a gift. Again, the baked goods, a stuffed animal, something soft, something that they can physically touch, would engage those senses. So even just the act of opening an envelope versus opening an email is different. It creates this physical connection to that person. You could also work scenarios that include taste and or touch into your agreement with clients. Not in like this kind of weirdo way, creepy. But for instance, you could have them reward themselves for reaching a goal by getting a massage. So when you reach this income goal, you're going to get a massage, or take your family on a vacation or out to eat because of your work together. When you force them to reward themselves in those ways, usually that's something that they've been striving for to, it's a reason they wanted to reach that goal so that they couldn't afford to do those things. You're engaging their sense of touch. You are also associating those accomplishments and those kind of bucket list things that they've wanted to do with your work together. And when you create these physical manifestations of what happens when they're working with you, they're going to want to continue to work with you. They're going to associate those good things with you and your brand. So in conclusion, there are 6 types of feel within your brand: visual, auditory, smellatory, or olfactory, didn't sound as cool as smellatory, taste, touch, and emotion. And if you incorporate multiple senses, it's going to make you more memorable in both that you're going to stand out, as well as you actually can ingrain your brand into people's memories using these senses. And it certainly is going to get people talking. I guarantee it that if I put a scent at my event table in May, no one else is going to have that, and it's going to get people talking. It's just a funny thing. And again, it makes you stand out. The other thing is that senses would not only be used to stand out, they can also be used as learning tools and as an aid in your work together as a coach. Sorry, the last part of that sentence got cut off. So it can aid in working with you and kind of reinforcing the goals that you're setting together with your client and reinforcing the results that you're helping them get. So that is my presentation on how to make a smelly brand stick and why you would want to. If you have any questions, type them in on the right-hand side. And while you guys are catching up, I'm just going to talk about next week. Next week, we're going to talk about beastly websites, the proper care and feeding of your coaching website. And if you want help creating your engaging, smelly, sticky brand, you can email holly@thelandofbrand.com. I would be happy to talk to you and see if we have any options that would fit your needs at the moment and where you are in your business. And I'm not seeing any questions coming in, so I hope you all have a fantastic day. And hopefully you'll be joining me at 2 o'clock for the webinar on how to make yourself a category authority by marketing in your spare time. If you don't have that information, shoot me an email. I will get it off to you. And I hope you have an awesome day, and I will see you next Wednesday. Bye.